Yeah, we can put that in there too. Yeah, I messed up the last attempt at the intro. Hi, I'm Courtney. Welcome to Something Positive for Positive People, the podcast where I speak with individuals living with or who have experiences with STDs about their personal experience. Today, I am here with Theresa, who is, did you say 61?
I am 61.
You are
Yes.
61 years old. Fine wine, girl, fine wine. So, you have HSV type 1 and type 2, and you were
Correct.
diagnosed at age 52. You are a Caucasian female who lives in Charlotte.
Salisbury.
Oh, so close. Salisbury, that's North Carolina, right?
Right.
Okay, got it. What am I missing? Caucasian, 61. What is your career field?
I'm a registered nurse, now retired.
Oh, you're a retired nurse? I thought
hmm
retirement age was 65. They let you off early.
I had to go on disability.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Is it kind of like a vacation for you, or do you miss work? Oh,
I, it's like working with no coffee breaks.
yikes! Wait, now you're working still?
I, I have four generations living in my house.
Oh, okay. And that's what parents, children, grandchildren.
Yep. The
Oh,
oldest is 81 and the youngest is 5.
oh man, you got the whole spectrum there. So you got like like smoothies and fruit snacks. Oh,
It involves it all.
that's awesome. So you're staying active, safe to assume.
hmm
All right. Now, we talked about earlier. We talked a lot, I'm very, very thankful that you were able to hop on here and just get to recording because I would like to carry the momentum from that conversation into this podcast episode.
Good.
So first, let's start with your own personal story about how you were diagnosed, when you were diagnosed, and just everything that was going on around that time.
Okay. Um, my ex and I were not having a great marriage, and I found out on my 52nd birthday, as a matter of fact, that he had been cheating on me. He left his email open to an alternate lifestyle website, and it said safe sex, and he said sometimes. And my eyes shot through the top of my head, and long story short, I decided to kick him out. But unfortunately, by that point, he had given me herpes. Um, I had all the blood tests done, and they said, yep, you're negative for everything but herpes. And of course, then I decided I was going to fall apart briefly. Geez, now I'm 52 and I'm single. Who's going to want me now?
Mm-hmm.
And I envisioned many years alone, and I said, let's see what we can do. So I immediately jumped on my laptop and Googled herpes dating sites. Don't ask me why I grabbed dating instead of support. It's just what came to mind.
Well, and
I
the
think
thing
I
about
had,
that though is a lot of people who are diagnosed with something immediately go to who's going to want me, or because that's mostly what's impacted. What's mostly impacted when you contract an STD is sex. I mean, you can have sex with yourself, but it's not near as fun as with other people. So at that
sure,
point, it's who's gonna want to have sex with me, and if no one's gonna want to have sex with me, I'm gonna be alone because obviously that's all the opposite sex or whatever interests you have is gonna want from you. Now we skipped a few details about what was going on in terms of your divorce and kicking your husband out. Do you want to touch on that, or should we leave that alone?
sure,
Okay.
sure. No, this is called the down low, and
Okay.
I'm bringing the down low to the up front.
Oh.
Um, there is my ex-husband was unhappy, but I had no idea how unhappy or why. And it turned out that when he left his website, the alternative lifestyle website open, he also left his email open. And I got quite an education. And basically, there's a whole organization of married men who live a homosexual lifestyle, and they go home to their wives and their kids, and then they do whatever on, yeah, and they go into different towns. And he was only working part-time, and I said, why don't you get another job? Well, I found out why. He was busy playing in his free time while I was working full-time.
Ah.
So, yeah, so that was a deal breaker for me. um,
As it probably would be for most people.
and I waited 3 months, and I finally kicked him out. But yeah, I had to. It was really hard because I had been faithful all 32 years we'd been together.
You two were
And
together for 32 years?
we were married 25 and together 32 years.
Wow. Okay.
And I had to have a whole lifestyle change. I mean, everything I saw in my future went out the window. And I was pretty devastated because, and I didn't even think about getting tested right away. I was so shocked that I was cheated on. And then friends of mine said, wait a minute, he's been having sex, not with you, and without necessarily safe sex. Girl, you need to get tested. And immediately I went and I said, run everything. Don't leave anything out. And that's the thing people don't realize too. When you go to your doctor and you say, I want to be checked for STDs, unless you specify a herpes panel, they do syphilis, they do gonorrhea, they do chlamydia, they do HIV. They don't do herpes unless you specifically say, I want you to also test me for herpes.
Right.
It's an expensive test. And not everybody, that's where a lot of people think, oh, I'm clean. I don't have anything, because they erroneously think, because they weren't tested for herpes, which they didn't know, that they got nothing. In the meantime, herpes rolls on and on. And so it's something that needs to be known. When you go for a test, ask specifically for it.
Yeah. Now, as a registered nurse, or I'm sorry, retired registered nurse, you have a little bit of insight there. So I'm finding in my experience and talking to so many different people that it's a little bit challenging to get the test done that you want. There are cases where the doctor says, come back when you have an outbreak. There are instances where they say something along the lines of, well, the test won't be accurate unless you are having an outbreak. If you experience any symptoms, come back to us. There's all kinds of things across the entire spectrum of excuses. So why exactly is it challenging for some people to get tested? Unless they're just bullshitting me, and here I am like now in front of a medical professional asking this question.
Well, if they're going to do a swab and test that way, then it's very hard to test if you don't have something open to actually get cells from. But I didn't have anything going on, and my doctor just did a part of blood work. And that's how I found out. I never got swabbed for anything. So there's no reason to say, oh, well, you haven't had an outbreak or you haven't done this. Just give them an arm and they can take a tourniquet and get the blood, do the test, and you're on your way.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter. That's a cop-out, I think, sometimes, too. Oh, we're not going to do it. No.
Yeah.
This is where people really have to be their own advocate. They have to be assertive, and education is not a bad thing. This is what, look and see what can be done. Look what kind of tests are done. Herpes support sites, CDC, you've got Central Disease Center, you've got local health department. If you have questions, call these resources, because these are the ones who can tell you what you need to find out and where to go for help, questions. If you're really devastated by it, call your local health department to get mental health department, to get maybe some support on the phone.
Got it.
No one should ever feel alone because of this.
Yeah. And that's a tough thing to say to someone who is in that state of loneliness and sadness and anger, frustration, confusion, all of the negative emotions that come with a diagnosis. So knowing that those resources are available and out there for people, I think is tremendously helpful. It just takes the courage and effort to be able to just reach out to any of those. So I've noticed that there are people who live in denial about it, or who would just prefer to, be ignorant to it and be like, oh no, I can't have that. That can't be what it is. It's just an ingrown hair. Or who have, some sort of an outbreak or have come into contact with it and just chosen not to be tested. And, I understand it's scary, and you don't want to have to adjust to the lifestyle changes that come with that diagnosis, but just know that the resources are out there. So back to you, Theresa. So you kick your then husband out, you go get tested, you find out that did you find out you had HSV1 and 2 with this one test? Okay.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Now when you confronted him,
I still kept the copy of the blood test from all those years ago.
when you confronted your husband, how did he take it?
Shocked. When I was busy telling him, when I was busy handing him the separation agreement to sign and telling him he had to leave, I said, "Oh, by the way, you gave me herpes. Go get yourself tested." And he looked at me like his mouth hung open, and he was just in total shock. And that wasn't something he could have faked. I knew that was a genuine. He had no concept that had happened.
Mm-hmm.
But I never got an apology. As a matter of fact, what he said to me was, "You got what you deserved."
Oh shit.
Yeah.
That's unexpected. But I mean, if you got it from him, like, who really deserved it? You know, like you're cheating. You know.
Yeah, everything was always my fault. So, but the thing
Good
about
riddance.
that is, it made it easier to get over, even though it was hard to get over losing my partner for so many years, because I didn't have the parts he wanted. So it wasn't a competition. So that in itself made it easier.
I mean, you could go get them, I guess, at the store.
I don't think that was the same thing he was looking for.
Oh man. So, he ends up leaving. And do you think that him being the way that he was towards you, that's what made it easy for you to just kind of move on, right?
It wasn't easy. I went from been married for 25 years, I had two children that were 18 and 22 and 20, and it was hard because what I had envisioned was a future. You know, when you're in your 50s, especially, you start looking ahead to those senior years.
Right.
And they were stretched out ahead of me, and I had nobody. And if I followed along with the general thinking about herpes, I wasn't going to get anybody either.
Mm-hmm.
And being an older woman, the chances of getting someone are a little lessened. You know, they don't want to come with baggage or anything else.
Yeah.
Well, you've got some baggage if you've got herpes. It's a little bit more you've got to bring to the table.
Yeah, because you're past a point where it's like, oh, you have kids. Like someone at I don't want to say my age, but like early 20s, if you have kids, that's baggage. When you're in your upper 40s, 50s, and all your kids are out of the house, I mean, that's irrelevant. But would you, excuse me, would you say that the reason your marriage ended was because of the herpes or because of the cheating? Like, let's say you hadn't gotten herpes from him, so it was the cheating.
Because I had already decided to kick him out before I found out.
Oh.
I only found out about 2 weeks after I told him. After I found out, I went for testing 2 weeks later.
Okay.
But then I kept it quiet for 3 months before I actually confronted him and said, "I'm done."
Yeah. So wait, you were already on the verge of being about to kick him out? Like what was that?
No. We just had a miserable marriage. And now I know why he was so unhappy, and he was always critical, and I could never do anything right. He was a narcissistic, verbally abusive, not physically abusive.
Yeah.
And it probably, if I had continued down the road, I probably would have come to some point where I said, "You know what, I'm through." But this was the catalyst. It was like, okay, deal breaker. I did not sign up for that. You got to go.
Are you happier now?
I am deliriously happy.
And it's funny how, and I say this with people I speak with about herpes who have gone through and made it to the other side, just about how much happier they are now. Like, at that point in time, herpes was the worst possible thing that could have happened to you. But would you say now that, well, I know that you said this because we talked about it. You said that herpes was literally the best thing that ever happened to you. So can you talk to us about that? Like, why is herpes the best thing that ever happened to you?
Well, as soon as I found out that I was diagnosed with it, and that was November 2008, I immediately started looking for things. What do I deal with? And dating was the first thing, and I came upon this site, and it said, "Oh, okay." And it was support. And they had, the bulletin boards where you could write, write something.
Yeah, like forums and blogs.
Right. So I got in there and I said, "How do I tell my cheating husband to get out?" And I got all these answers, and it was like, "Oh, okay, there's support here." So, and I told them the story. I gave them the story I just gave you, and they were like, oh, they had very uncomplimentary things to say about him. And they were supportive, and they confirmed that it wasn't my fault and that I was worthy of being free of something like that. And oppressed is what some of my friends who knew him said.
Hmm.
But I went out and I started going places. I went places with friends. I do community theater, and I do costuming and acting when I get a chance to act.
Oh,
And
nice.
so I had that to go with and work on. And just getting, I didn't stay in the house and whine. I got up and out, and I immediately started looking for dating. I said, I'm 25 years behind. I got to get going.
Yeah. And one thing that a lot of people do is they look at they invest a lot of energy. I don't want to really say time, but a lot of energy is invested in the wrong areas at times. So in your case, you could have invested that energy into moping, complaining, sitting around and just being miserable, or you could have directed it into going and doing things for yourself. Like you said, you wanted to get into the theater stuff. You wanted to go out and be with friends and start dating again. And while you were behind 25 years, like I've learned to view time as more of a communication tool, whereas a lot of people use time as a means of it's interchangeable with the word experience. So you've had all of this experience, all of these experiences with your husband, and you never really got to know who he really was or what he really liked or anything like that. So you didn't really miss out, on too much in terms of time, but more so just different experiences. And I'm sure in that short amount of time that you've been with your now husband, it's been exponentially greater because of the experiences you've had, more so than how much time you've spent with each other.
I can certainly approve. It was it's my second husband's. My husband now, it's his second marriage as well.
Hmm.
So we've both brought do's and don'ts.
I hear that the second marriage is always better than the first.
Well, I can't say for everybody else, but I know the two of us are very happy. We have said we're sorry it took us so long to find our soulmate and the love of our life. So he proposed 6 weeks after we met.
Oh wow. So when you know, and like I said, that goes back to the time thing. Like the experiences that you two have must have been just phenomenal together. And then for him to be like, all right, I know I want to spend the rest of my life with you, so let's get to it. And here's what we're gonna do. Here's what we're not gonna do. Where's your list?
Well, the funny thing is when we met online.
Uh-huh.
And that's what I want to touch on too is do not limit yourself. If you're diagnosed with herpes, it is not a hair shirt. It's not a scarlet letter. Don't limit yourself. If you're more comfortable, especially in the beginning with the positive sites, that's fine. Wet your feet, get out there. But if you're not, once you settle down and you think, you know what, don't label yourself.
Yeah.
Get out there on Main Street and say, there are a lot who automatically announce on their profile that they've got herpes.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a lot who don't say anything. But that doesn't mean don't go out there and see who's there. And there's really no reason, unless you think that they're going to be an intimate situation with them, there's no reason to disclose.
Yeah. And we did a previous episode, and the title of it was Dating with Herpes is Just Like Dating. With or without herpes, you deal with the same kind of shit. So why limit yourself to the drama where
Absolutely.
herpes is removed from it when you can deal with the drama, and herpes is either gonna make it end faster or it's gonna get to where it's supposed to be sooner, as a result of that. Like, if someone's with you regardless and you're not, really wasting any time. But I used to be like that too. Like I thought that dating other people who only had herpes was safe. It was emotionally safe. And of course it's physically responsible because now you're not spreading the virus, and I use air quotes when I say that. But it would have limited me because my current girlfriend, had I not, been brave enough to disclose to her, like we met in real life and talked for a while, went on a date. I decided, all right, I think I should tell her. I plan on being intimate with her. So I told her, it's like, hey, here's the situation. I have herpes. I have genital HSV2. This is what it means for me. Here's how I manage it. This is what it means to you should we decide to be intimate. And left it at that. And then out of nowhere, several minutes later, I get a response back from her. It's like, there's never really a right time to say this, ... me too. And I was like, oh shit, now had I stayed on the dating sites, I may have never met her. And it's not been long. I think we've been together. Yeah, it's been about 4 months now, but things are going really, really well. And I wouldn't have met this phenomenal person that I'm with had I limited myself. Let's say that.
Well, I asked before, Joe, my husband now, and I may refer to Joe in more than one. Both of my husband's names, Joe.
Oh, you have a type.
No, not necessarily. It's just happened that way. Makes conversation confusing sometimes. But
we can call him Joe too.
I'm sorry.
We can call him Joe too.
But when I met him, and it looked like it was going to go more than just friends, I made him go get tested. I said, and I told him, and I sat him down, and I said, this is what it is. I sat next to him on the sofa, and I said, I have something to tell you before we go any further. And I said, through no fault of my own, I contracted herpes. It is an inconvenient skin disease, and it is non-curable. It is a virus, but it does not affect me except every once in a while I'll maybe have an outbreak. Yes, I can transmit it. It is not by fluids. It is by skin-to-skin contact. I was not ashamed. I did not come across ashamed. Are we still?
We're here, yeah.
Okay. I did not come across apologetic. I just said facts to facts. I said, here's a couple of websites. If you want to go, take a look at it before you give me an answer if you want to continue. But I wanted to let you know at this point so we don't go any further. Because I really like you, and I think we could really make this work. And he looked, and he got the blood test, and he was free of anything. He looked, he said, I don't need to go on and look up anything. He goes, I'm not going anywhere. This doesn't make you who you are. I don't care.
Yeah.
And that was 4 weeks before he proposed.
Yeah.
So
he was certain. He was sure of himself.
Mm-hmm. He was absolutely certain.
In dating, and I only can speak from my own personal experience and the experiences of other people who shared their experience with me, but like when I was out dating after my diagnosis, like I was very indecisive. I thought I wanted one thing, I thought I wanted something else, I tried something new, and I realized a lot of those relationships or a lot of those encounters, let's call them that, didn't last or work out because I was indecisive about what it was that I wanted. And I never really, cat tail, there's a cat walking by the screen, that was just funny.
That was like one of my cats, yeah.
So I had just never taken the time to really sit down and go over what it was that I wanted. And I tell a lot of people now, you really want to look for decisiveness in a partner, because that indecisiveness is like, that hesitance is really it's a lot of people still wonder what's on the other side. Like, does the grass look greener on the other side? And like, would you say that him, Joe too, being as decisive as he was about you, was one of the things that more so made you feel like I made the right decision in opening up, disclosing to this person?
Yes. The funny thing is, when we both met, we said, well, neither one of us had any intention of ever getting married again.
Uh-huh.
So, and he kept saying, well, I want to move to the next level. Well, I want to move to the next level. And I'm thinking, there's no more levels after this. What more can we do? And I'm thinking, we've already said we don't want to get married again. But he was very decisive. He was very sure of who he wanted, what he wanted. And the funny thing is he stayed friends with his ex-wife. And he said, oh, by the way, he says, my ex-wife wants to meet you. I've talked about you. And she says, well, bring her over. Let's meet her already.
That is fucking weird.
It was very
I'm
weird.
not
A
gonna
lot
lie,
of
that is
pressure.
weird.
It was, and that was supposed to be like the day we went on an actual first date, but we met in the week, so that took the second, was the second date. And she was engaged, and he brought me in, and we got introduced, and we became fast friends. She passed away a couple of years after we got together, and I was very sorry to see her go. She got cancer,
Ah,
and she passed away, and we were good friends. She was a lovely lady and so accepting, and just it also the fact that he brought me into his family. He has two grown children and one in heaven, and I have two grown children. So the fact that he brought me into his family so quickly made me understand that he accepted me as I was. He wanted to share me, that I wasn't something to keep behind closed doors.
yeah,
And that's, to me, that's very sexy.
yeah.
That somebody is so happy with you and so proud of you, and they want you to say, hey, she's mine.
Mm-hmm.
And especially, I think it's hard, because a lot of us, when we first find out about herpes, we feel like we're damaged goods.
Mm.
And when somebody doesn't treat you that way, that is like, wow, this is great.
Yeah. It can give you a false perception of what being treated amazing is, because like when you feel like you're damaged goods, anything that comes along and treats you otherwise, it just feels so much better. And it's like when you do finally get to a point where you've accepted yourself, and then someone comes along with that average shit, like you don't want any parts of it, you're more dismissive towards them. You'll start to tell people I have herpes in hopes that they just go away. And then at that
Yeah,
point
that's been very handy a couple of times for me.
yeah.
But uh,
But it's just you have higher standards when you
But the
get
thing,
to
and
that
the thing
place.
about herpes is, you can go out and do a lot of dating and seeing a lot of people. Let's see how this turns out, and you may stay in the relationship longer, just because you've got nothing else to do. You get to with herpes. Since it's such a if I'm going to become intimate with this person, is there a chance? Is there that attraction? And do I see the potential for long term?
Yeah.
If you don't, it's a lot easier to cut it off a lot sooner. Because when you decide what you want, you say, gee, I don't see this going anywhere. Let's just end it rather than, so that saves you also having that very, very nerve-wracking talk with someone about it. And like I said, unless you feel like you're going to be intimate, there's no reason for them to know. That's that's a nunya.
Nunya. I haven't heard that in such a long time. Oh, so you're happy now. You've gone
Yes.
through the divorce. That's taken care of. You're in your second marriage. You two have been together for, did you say 7 years? Is that
Almost 7 years.
almost 7 years? Congratulations again. Like that's phenomenal for you to have found love. At an age where a lot of people just say, "Oh, I'm damaged goods. I'm old. No one's gonna want me." Like you've
It
pushed
takes a lot to
through.
get out there. I think it takes more for women,
Uh
to
huh.
be honest, to get out there. Not that we're so much more special than men, but I think something like this makes us just that much more vulnerable.
Yes.
Especially if we've been hurt by someone. We'll kind of go, maybe I don't want to take a chance.
Mm-hmm.
It does take us a certain amount of bravery to get out there at the age plus a diagnosis of herpes.
Yeah.
So, double whammy.
And like I think that it just takes the experiences too. The negative experiences more so equip you with what you need so that you're ready for the positive experiences, so that you can recognize and move forward accordingly. Because a friend of mine always said, if you get something too soon before you're ready for it, all you do is fuck it up. So yeah, you gotta just learn to appreciate the bad experiences. Like I've learned to appreciate my herpes and appreciate all of the missed opportunities and things that I've had, because I wouldn't have been ready to be where I am now. I wouldn't have been ready to launch this podcast or be the way that I am with it, or for it to be as successful as it is at this point, or even be where I am in my relationship, with my friendships and my career, all of these things. And you have to really appreciate those bad experiences, because they are the what you need in order to move on and experience the positive ones.
They're your reference points. What you will accept, what you won't accept, what your ideal is. And just before you said, ask me, but I told you that herpes is probably one of the best things that ever happened to me. And people are going to go, oh no, she doesn't mean that. Yes, I do, because having this to share, to find out information, to contact other people, to exchange stories, it brought me into a whole different world.
Yeah.
And it's all walks of life. It's all financial resources. It's all religions. Let me tell you, herpes gets rid of a lot of divisiveness.
Yeah.
Because you've got this common goal. It's like, how do I deal with this?
Mm-hmm.
And I have so many friends now, online, in real life, and I have met them because of herpes. I would never have met them otherwise. I have traveled to other states. I've gone and met people, shared a house in the mountains for a weekend. I would never have done any of this.
You share toilet seats and drinks.
Drinks, bottle of wine, swinging it around the room. It's been so much fun. It's been so much more positive part of the expression than negatives. So it really was a life changer for the good.
Yeah.
And but you got to reach a certain mindset and acceptance. You've got to say basically this is not what defines me. This is not a big portion of who I am. It's just something I got.
Yeah.
And it's controllable for the most part. You won't die from it. You may get a little uncomfortable at times, but that could be taken care of and treated too. The most uncomfortable part of it, I think, is how you think about it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's just a constant battle that can go on inside your mind unless you decide to just end the war. Like the best way to do that is just come to terms with it, be accepting of it, and the only power that it has over you is really what you think other people are going to think about you because you have it. And once you're able to let go of that, like there's nothing there. There's the freedom to recognize what you need to do, the self-reflection, and being able to just go on and live your life. So
and there shouldn't be any shame or guilt behind it. Aside from those people who have it, know it, and then go out and act irresponsibly, which is a shameful thing if you have no integrity like that. None of us got it by choice. We all trusted the person we were with. And for what other reason? If they didn't know, well, they can't help it if they didn't know.
mm-hmm.
Sometimes it just happens like that. But if they knew, that's on them. But you have to have the integrity to tell them. It's only fair.
Yeah.
Be straight up. Yeah, the talk is rough. And sometimes people leave skid marks going out the door. But a lot of them stay. That's like any relationship. Relationships end all the time. Even those with people with herpes, and not because of herpes.
Yeah.
Just normal relationship stuff.
Mm-hmm. Now,
we're not aliens.
We're at a point now where we can start to wrap this up, Theresa. Last question I have is one that I already know the answer to, but being that you're 61 and you've had HSV 1 and 2 for the last 9 years, are you open about your status?
Yes, since day one.
Since day one, you've been open.
I'll be honest, I was so devastated that, I said, not only did my husband cheat on me, he gave me herpes. And some people were stunned that I would come out and say it, and some were like, oh, you know what, I have it too. And like I said, I tell people about it, and if they have any questions, I use it as a teachable moment, and hopefully they'll pass it on to somebody else, the information, not the herpes. And so that somebody else will be educated, and eventually it'll be just like a cold. Oh, I have a cold. Oh, I have herpes.
Mm-hmm.
It's a virus, and there's no stigma attached.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I personally thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me and share your story and really shed some light on anyone who just maybe can relate to you. whether it be age wise, personality wise, career wise, or something in this story is able to really help someone cope with their own diagnosis or even help them with getting through the way that they feel about it. Because, I mean, I will say that coming out about my own condition and talking about my experiences and talking to other people who've had similar experiences has really it's disintegrated the barriers between us that are created, such as race, different cultures, or income, career fields, religious beliefs, just like you said. So, like, coming together on this has really brought a lot of people together. And I think that it's awesome when we're able to talk to one another about our personal experiences and connect and relate in being so vulnerable because there's such strength in that vulnerability. And if I just feel like more of us should be able to experience this. So if nothing else, I mean, I say this pretty often for someone to just find someone that they trust and that they really feel that they can trust, and just start telling that person. And it gets easier and easier with
It does. It
experience.
really gets a lot easier.
Yeah.
Once that first person you tell, the next person isn't as difficult,
Yeah.
and so on.
It gets addicting.
I would put it on a bulletin board, because there are people who just don't need to know.
Yeah.
But you're right. No, and I'm happy to help in any way. I know how hard it is to go through those early days,
Mm-hmm.
and if this helps anyone in any way, then I am so glad.
That's awesome. All right, so I don't think we need to edit anything, so I can just post this up like now, honestly. I appreciate you again taking the time to speak with me. Is there anything else that you want to leave us with? You've already left us with a lot of gems.
Yeah, I think I pretty much said plenty.
Okay. Awesome. Well, you can go on and say bye to everyone.
Goodbye.
All right,
Go
guys.
forth and be happy.
Be happy. Yeah, that's important. All right, guys, this concludes this episode of Something Positive for Positive People with Theresa. I can be found on Instagram, Twitter, and Tumblr at H on my chest, or you can follow, add me on Facebook. I've found that a few people have been doing that lately. I'm just Courtney Brain. I'm wearing a Given 100 t-shirt in my profile picture, and I think it's in black and white, and I'm looking off to the left or something. It's real poetic. Like, it's probably one of my favorite pictures. So you can find me on any of those. If you or someone wants to share their personal story about their own experience with an STD or dating someone with one, or if you have any questions at all or want to be connected to any local groups or communities in your area, please don't hesitate to reach out. And just remember, you're not alone in this. There are plenty of people out there who feel the same way you do, who are going through what you're going through, who have been through what you're going through, and have made it to the other side. And it just takes, I don't want to say time, it takes experiences before you get to a point where you're able to come to terms with it. And we all have our different paths of experiences and different collections of experiences that get us to where we've come to terms with it and accept ourselves. So till next time, stay positive. Peace.